All right, so we're just going to start by looking at the video that I showed last week of guard changes, just to review quickly, and then we'll look at what everybody's done. I think everybody who has submitted homework this past week is here. That looks good, yeah. Okay, so let me just draw up that video really quickly. Okay, so the main thing that I want you to see about all of these things is that every action begins with putting the point to the target, regardless of if it's a small transition from an inside terza to an outside terza, or if it's a huge one from a quarta to a prima. The first action has got to get the point into line onto the target before you can make that huge transition. Otherwise, you're simply going to weaken the point by leaving it behind. All right, so let's just quickly look at a bunch of them. So, terza to quarta. Okay, you can't see it as much in the side view, but if you look carefully, the point is going to the inside, powered by the turn of the body. So basically, the entire structure is going to aim at the inside, as you can see it here. All right? The shoulders are moving the point to the inside target. And then once the point is there, the guard change can be completed. All right? So let's look at another one, quarta to terza. Now here, it's not so much powered by the body, because the body is already in a full profile, and that's where we want the where we want our body when we lunge in terza, at least in this case. So here we have the arm recrossing the center line to get back in line with the shoulders, but that has to happen before the commitment. It's during the extension of the lunge, but before the commitment. Like so. And as with all the lunges of terza, we don't want to hyperextend the arm. We want to bring the shoulder down to where the elbow is. All right. So really so as I said before, with the sword hand, in many cases, especially voids, the hand is the still center of the universe. In this case, with the terza lunge, the elbow is going to be the still center of your universe. Right. The hand comes to wherever the elbow is, and the shoulder comes to where the elbow. And I've given you a few drills to help you with that, and we'll be reviewing those. Again, from an inside find, everything comes to the elbow. First the forearm, and then the shoulder. Inside to seconda. Okay. So when we're going to a high guard, the particular danger here is again of leaving that point behind, because we tend to move the hand through the line, but automatically going to a seconda or a prima, which of course has a weak angle on the outside and leaves the point out of the line. So we have to transition through a terza when we're going to one of those guards. Terza, and then roll it through seconda. From the inside find, going to terza, rolling through. That's what keeps the line strong. And that's regardless of where the lunge of seconda is going to be. Is it going to be a higher seconda with sword engagement, or is it going to be a low seconda going under the sword? Now we look at starting from an angled guard. Now, this has the advantage of the point is already strong in this case. Actually, let me go right to the front view on this. Okay, so here we have, actually, let me get this. So here we have the sword pointing this way already, all right, angled inward. Now that is a strong position of the sword. There's no engagement yet, but we want to maintain that strength, that direction of the point throughout. So we're going towards a quarta, but if we turn to quarta too soon, the point is going to be going in the other direction. All right. Okay. So since we're already pointing at the target, we continuously point at the target even as we're extending arm and body, even as we're bringing everything into a line. Once everything is aligned, that's when we can rotate around our point, like so. Whoops. Point continuously goes to target, lengthen, 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 and rotate, like so. Now this is a fairly specialized situation, but it could happen, say, if you're in seconda on the outside and he performs a cavazione, you can still make a guard change through that cavazione, but maintaining that strength of angle. All right, now we have another extreme example, starting in a quarta, whether angled or not, and going to a prima. Again, we have to transition through terza. Even though it's a high terza, we have to transition to a terza, which is pointing straight forward so we can rotate around it. You see that the terza is high because we're engaging the sword high, which necessitates a prima to go through. So here, we already have that little angle of quarta going to the inside. Again, we simply need to follow it to get to that terza. Straighten it out and roll around it, like so. Okay. So those are the mechanics that we're looking at. Are there any questions about any of that? Okay, cool. Then let's move on to homework. Okay, now I'm going to start again in the order in which I received. And I believe, yeah, everybody's here. So Jen, I'm going to start with you because you have some homework that you submitted last week and we didn't look at because you weren't here. So this is your footwork and your recovery solo form. Okay, just making sure, Jen, you are there, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Okie dokie. Okay. Okay, everybody see this? Okay. So I especially want to start here because as you start nicely coming to guard, right? And I just want to look at that guard for a second. Okay. Now, Jen, we talked about that little head thrust going on, right? So you've got a really nice base going. You sink into that back leg. You refuse the body, but then you stick the head forward, right? You want to keep the head in line with the spine. Because right now you're kind of almost describing it like an little S curve that ends up pointing at your opponent. So keep everything back. You're pointing at him with your weapon, not with your head. Okay. And the lesson here really is when you come to guard, take your time, right? This is for everybody. Whenever you start a drill, whether it's by yourself or with a partner, take your time with that initial act of coming to guard, because the starting position for any action is as important as how you execute it. If you start from a strong, well-structured position, chances are the action itself will be stronger and better structured. So always start a drill, as Jennifer here did, with that nice, a nice neutral position, but then come to guard and pay attention to what needs to move where, all right? And you can even take it piece by piece, just like we first did in the taster class, right? You know, bring out your weapon to point, sink, turn out that back foot, sink into it, you know, step back. Just go piece by piece so that everything makes sense and everything is where it's supposed to be. That's just that's a general note for everybody. I think it'll help. Okay, so starting off with footwork, very nice and smooth. Okay, actually this is your solo form. So let's look at that. Okay. Okay. So Jen, like I was telling a lot of people last week, you want to commit more to each action. And you can practice the actions in isolation from each other first before you try to string them together in a solo form. The value of a solo form is that it gives you an opportunity to perform each action correctly and to the best of your ability, and then to string them together into a tactical whole. All right. So you're performing it, you know, nice and cleanly here, but okay. But as you finish that lunge, you're already kind of thinking of the recovery. All right. So lunge as if you mean it, and then get the hell out with your recovery. It becomes more apparent with each subsequent lunge, where you're not pushing forward as far as you could. And then that last one, you don't even lunge at all. I don't know if that was deliberate or not. All right. Also, watch out for that that turned-in foot. Right. It's more evident in the front view video that you sent me. Right. So footwork nice and smooth. You have a tendency to move your weight a little forward the farther you go, but then really commit to each action. Right? It kind of looks like you're assuming a position rather than really punching somebody with your body. That make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So let's go to your other video, which I think is a front view. Yeah, oh, that's weird. Okay. Okay. Dragging the foot a little bit, and here you can see that knee turning in, right? But look at what that's doing. All right, let me pause it. Okay. So nice and slowly. So your knee is turning in. Your terza is really nicely formed, right? It's right in front of the shoulder. And then look where it ends up. You see how it's coming to the inside? You see how it exposes your arm and your right flank?
Yeah.
It's a common problem, but in this case, I think it's largely due to the fact that your knee is already pointing in that direction. And so your body, when it comes forward, wants to be supported by your knee. And so it moves over that knee and opens up the outside line. Right? So that knee is what is going to, fixing that knee is what's going to fix that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Remember, a mirror is your best practice tool, right? Keep working with a mirror if you can. And when you come to guard, start off by pushing out with your thighs. All right, you've already got your left thigh pointed back at 7 or 8 o'clock quite nicely, but go ahead and tense your right thigh so it comes more towards 12 o'clock, and then feel that tension and maintain that tension as you step forward and as you lunge forward. All right, it's almost as if you're pushing against something towards the outside. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So I'll get to your new videos in a bit. So I'm just going to keep going as I receive them. Got a bunch of things from Mark right off the bat. Okay. Let me just check my notes for a second. Okay. All right. So Mark, your issues are pretty consistent here. Now, one thing that I am going to recommend to you, and I don't know if you're already doing this, but if you're not, definitely do it. Set up a target for yourself. All right. It doesn't have to be a target that you're going to hit, although you can do that too. Use your gong. That would be fun. But set up a target that you can point at. So every time you lunge, your point needs to be pointing at that target before you commit. All right. Okay. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Okay. So did you see there? You'd made that turn to quarta, and your sword was pointing in the other direction. All right. All right. So you're doing a terza da quarta transition. You're leading with your hand, and your point, you can kind of see it right there in front of your right shoulder. Right. So that basically you snapped your hand into place but left your point behind. So what you need to do is set up a target and point to it before you move anything else, and then follow through. All right. You do a little bit better in the second one. There. See, that second one, you're actually leading with the point a little bit better. All right. But you need to make that consistent. Okay. Little hyperextension in the arm there. Generally okay, true times are there. I'd love to see more body extension in there. But there's a few more issues that we'll see in the other videos. Mark, here's something that, other than using a target, and by the way, that's for everybody. Everybody needs to use a target, especially with these guard change exercises. Now, Mark, one thing I'd like you to think about is when you lunge, or rather, when you practice lunging, try doing it against a door that you can push open. So that
I noticed that I lean forward, and some of the unusual stuff is because I'm trying to stay straighter. I notice I lean a lot.
You mean leaning to the side?
Leaning forward to my belly button.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, the issue that I'm addressing right now is the fact that you tend to you tend to jab out with your arm, and this is a pretty common problem with everybody, or with a number. What I'd like you to try to do is place yourself in front of a door that swings away from you. Begin an arm body extension and just do that. You can just do this with your hand, with your finger. You don't have to do this with a sword. Just reach forward and touch it, and then continue to extend arm, body, and then push forward with the foot, but without letting the door get away from you. You see what I mean? In other words, extend, but maintain constant contact. That way, you're controlling the push of the door away from you by controlling your body's extension. If you jab forward or hyperextend, then that door is going to start popping away from you. All right, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, this, by the way, everybody that I have called on for hyperextended arm, this is what you want to do to try to fix that. All right? Especially with terza, where you really need to keep that arm relaxed because you want to keep it low and bring your body to it. Right? Work against the door, kind of just flow through and maintain contact with your fingertip on the door throughout the entire process. Okay, that and using a target. Okay. Okay, let's move on through your other videos. So here we got, yeah. So now you're going from quarta to terza, and let's look at that for a second. Yeah. So what I wrote down here is that you're going to the wrong target. You're making the turn to terza, and it's actually a fairly well aligned terza, except it's going to the inside target, not the outside target. All right. So so as you transition to terza, that sword and arm need to come right in front of your shoulder and basically be pointing right at us rather than away from us.
So go aim at his right shoulder, aim at his belly.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear any of that.
Don't aim at the right shoulder, aim at his belly.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Mark, and everybody who has a problem with closing a line in terza, here's an exercise that you can try, especially if you are in an apartment like this with a nice wide expanse of bare wall. Come to guard with your right side up against the wall, with your right foot, knee, hip, and shoulder.
Right.
Extend forward in a terza guard. Your arm should be in contact with that wall. Extend, sliding along the wall. That way your arm is exactly where it needs to be to close an outside line. Now try that. Go to a quarta, where you're taking your arm away from the wall, right, crossing your center line, and go ahead and transition to terza on the extension. And once that your arm is back in contact with the wall, that's when you can go forward. That's when you can push forward, right? So stand against the wall and don't commit to the lunge until your arm is right there back up against the wall. Right? If you have a bare expansive wall at home, this is the way to practice that terza. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's for everybody. Okay, so let's see. Is there more to this one? Yeah, okay, so. Yeah, and we're doing it from the other side. Yeah, so again, that arm extension is hyperextended. You can see the hand is coming above the shoulder, right? That in terza, that arm, you want to keep it basically level with your bottom ribs, and then bring your shoulder down to it. Right? If you haven't looked at them before, look at the series of lunges of videos that got posted on Facebook. They're also on the CSG website, the Lunging from the Ground Up series. The 2 videos in the lunge of terza are what you want to look at in this case.
This is slightly angled up. The camera's low.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that. Yeah, but the problem, we're still looking at the original video, I think. The problem here is that you were still pointing to the inside target, not to the outside target.
Yeah, I was aiming to the shoulder.
Yeah, okay. So let's move on.
No doubt about it.
Okay, so here we have quarta to seconda. So basically the same issues. Wait a minute, okay, so remember, so here, like I said, you need to transition through terza, all right? As your arm is coming across, it needs to get to terza with the point on target, and then you roll around it. Your ending position of seconda is looking pretty good. Maybe a little tense in the shoulders, but pretty good. But there's a tendency to leave the point behind if you go to seconda, all right? So here, so you see the hand moving across the center line, and that point is lagging. Not by a lot. You're actually doing fairly well with keeping control of the point, but there's that little opening on the outside before you complete it.
Gotcha.
All right. So before you commit the body, you have got to get the point in line and then roll that body around the point. Okay, now we're doing seconda to quarta. And okay, so here you actually do a nice job. That point is already going to the inside and you're rolling around it. The only thing I have to say about this is that you're bringing the foot forward too soon. All right, the transition from seconda to quarta itself is good, but complete it before you bring the foot forward. All right, get the point on target and the shoulders in line with it before you actually step into the lunge.
Gotcha.
Okay. And watch that recovery. You're dragging your foot back. Yeah. Yeah. And again, from the side, what we can see again is that hyperextension of the arm. So, and even in quarta and seconda, especially, well, definitely in seconda, but even in quarta, you still want to keep that a little loose. You don't want to, you don't want to reach out as far as you can. That you need to be able to control that arm and so not hyperextend it. Okay, last video from Mark. We have quarta to prima. Okay, and this is the same thing. Yeah, again, you're transitioning too quickly to prima.
That's seconda.
This is. I see your hand turning to prima.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
You're going too far.
You're right.
Okay. So what you're doing well here is that you're letting your point follow the natural angle of quarta that you'd already established. Right. That point is going to the target, but then with your hand still in quarta, you're whipping it around into prima. And again, a more controlled action is what you want. I want you to feel your hand in terza, and once it's there, you bring your left shoulder forward to roll around it.
Okay.
See it again. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, end position looks okay. But the important part is how you get there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good work, Mark. All right, let's move on. We got Katrina next. Check out notes here. Okay, so Katrina, okay, so this is a follow-up on last week. You want to see if your stepping is getting any better in your soliform?
Yeah,
Okay, so
it is a murder basement. It does look like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we'll just call you Jigsaw.
Yeah.
Oh, dragging that back foot.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, the soliform wasn't bad. Again, general note for everything is turn out the back leg a bit more. You're using the common Capofero stance here, and your foot was turned a little bit farther forward. I think you've gotten a little Fabris happy there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So point it backwards, and that's going to help you with those recoveries, because if your leg is turned out that way, then the knee will go that way and pull you back. So you see it right off the bat in your guard and stepping. Yeah, see how the knee your foot's at 90 degrees, but your knee is pointing inward from your foot, which frankly is worse than if you were pointing everything forward, because now you're actually twisting the knee.
Gotcha.
All right. So point that knee back, and then use that to facilitate your recoveries. Because you see, if you bend your knee, it's pointing downward inside your foot rather than out and pulling you back. Right? Other than that, your commitment is looking pretty good. Your basic understanding of how the recoveries work is looking fine. Just make that little adjustment. When you transition through guards, work it more slowly.
Okay.
You're tending to rush the lunges a little bit by you need to get to a certain place, and really it's the how you get there. Like I was telling Mark, it's the how you get there that's important. So allow yourself, again, general note for everybody, allow yourselves to work slowly. It doesn't have to be Tai Chi slow, but there's nothing wrong with that. If you control your breathing and just move through these actions like molasses, making sure everything is where it needs to be, then you can speed it up very gradually. Right? I know Rapier is a strenuous activity, but if you just try to get it over with as quickly as possible, it's not going to work. All right. The other thing you can do is imagine your opponent's sword. I mean, it helps to give yourself a target, but every time you, especially in this solo form, right? Because the solo form has a specific setup, right? You're striking in one line, and after your initial recovery, you're striking in the opposite line, presumably because he parried the first one and thereby opened up the opposite line, right? And then in the third lunge, you're voiding it backwards, but then countering with new opposition. So as you do this, and you take your time, before you make a move, before you lunge, picture your opponent's sword, attack through it, recover. Oh, what did he do with his sword now? Attack, go through it, etc., etc. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, Tony's up. The man of 1,000 socks. Now, Tony, you titled these as your janky videos. I assume you mean you're not too happy with them.
I thought I'd save you the effort of the reading.
But you did post them. Okay. So let's look what we got here. Okay, so basically I'm going to say the same thing I said to Mark, which is give yourself a target, right? Because you're moving your hand through the lines, but the point frequently does not follow, or rather the point does not lead and follows your hand. Okay, so there's a good example, right? That basic terza da quarta. Hand goes across. You see how I see that angle the sword is making towards your outside. That's what you want to avoid, right? So you lead with a point, and then follow with the hand. The quarta da terza looks better, right? See, that's exactly what you need to do, and that is where you want to be before you make any further rotations towards seconda or prima. So here we go from the inside fine, and basically you're trying to close the line with your hand before whipping your point into place, right? So you want to do the same thing you did with going to terza. Go to terza, then roll around it. And from here, here the problem is even more apparent because you immediately turn your hand to quarta. Right? So, like I told Mark, let your action follow the angle that your sword has already created. Extend along that line. You'll be straightening out sword and arm while you're doing that, right? You just let your point go there and reach out. It'll straighten everything up, and eventually you'll also turn your shoulders into it, and then everything will be pointing at that inside target. But just let the point lead you. Same thing there. You're whipping from an inside to a prima without going through terza or seconda. Okay. So slow down. Give yourself a target and slow down. Right. Try doing it counting your number of breaths, right? Try doing the action on 4 nice deep breaths from start to finish, then try it on 3, then try it on 2. Okay. Next in the janky series. All right. So first thing I notice here is that your Fabris guard is looking pretty damn good. But the transitions have the same problem. Quarta da terza remains good, but the rest, the point is lagging. That was a little bit better in your seconda to quarta. Let's look at that again. Oops, I'll see that slowly. Yeah, the point is going, but you're making the rotation to quarta too soon. When doing this huge extreme transition, everybody, wait until your arm and sword basically straighten out and point at the target. Once they straightened out, you can make that turn of the arm and even bring the hand more across your center line if you feel that's necessary, but only once the point's on target and the arm and sword have straightened out. If you straighten out arm and sword and then the shoulders rotate into line with your arm and sword, you really don't need to move the hand across your center line at all, because even though they haven't gone into a parallel line with your opponent's sword, you are still completely covering your own line because your body is hidden behind it. So you're essentially taking your structure and angling everything towards the inside target, even though you're not actually taking over that line by pushing your hilt into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll assume everybody agrees with you. Okay. 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 Good job, Tony. So, like I said, nice Fabris guard. Nice guards in general, but slow down your actions and work them through molasses. Okay, Daniel.
Hey, John.
Okay. Oh, yes. And here we get to hear Dan killing his dog.
She was very mad about all of the stabbing I was doing.
Yeah. Okay. So first off the bat, your Terza and Fabris is looking pretty good in that you are closing the outside line nicely. But there is still that little lean off to the other side.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see it here. Good. Yeah. So that second one, you followed through a little too quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, with your foot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. But nice. Okay. Now we have quarta de terza. Yeah. You see that jab?
Yeah.
Hyperextending the arm. Good. Yeah. Okay. And we kill the dog. There we go. And then I think you kill Sarah. I'm not sure.
No, the dog kills Sarah.
Okay.
And so then Sarah kills the dog.
Okay. Next we have, yeah, Dan, slow down as well when you
Okay.
practice.
Sure.
Yeah. Work it through molasses. If I cannot see the exact timing of what you're doing, then you can't either.
Sure.
Or rather, then you're not doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's that pop in the arm into seconda. That really should be, you know, the arm comes to the outside and stays loosey-goosey while you rotate your body around it.
Sure.
Okay. Remember the tabletop. All right. Even when you're transitioning to seconda, from quarta, bring your arm down onto that tabletop, keep it there, and then bring your shoulder down to it as you rotate.
Okay.
Okay. Also, in your quarta, you could refuse your inside line a bit better.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
Okay. Yeah, so there's an example that could be slowed down because and you're using a dagger, so it's even a more obscure, but it looks to me like that point would have been lagging with a sword.
Okay.
Okay, so here we have the seconda quarta, which looks really nice as far as I can tell at the speed you're doing it. Leading with the point. Yep. Pretty good. Yeah, I would say there's a little bit of point lag in that last action, just because I think you're making the transition to quarta just a hair too soon.
Okay.
And let's be clear about something. When I say don't turn the hand before right away, That's a pedagogical thing. In other words, I want to make sure that you're pointing at the right target because that turn of the hand always has a tendency to move the point. It's just a natural thing that happens. If you get to the point in your training where you are able to rotate around a point from a steep angle and not move the point, more power to you, right? But when we, if you can, in your guard change, say from terza to quarta, turn to quarta even as that point is going to the target and then move through it, awesome. But the safest way, and certainly the safest way to train it, is to point in terza, because that's what gives you the maximum control over your point. And of course, when you do it for real and about, chances are you're going to make that turn of the hand too soon anyway, so you may as well have it ingrained that the point needs to be on target.
Makes sense.
Okay. Okay, cool. Let's move on.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Dan. All right, Nick, you're up. We have 3 videos from Nick. Okay, how are we doing for time? Okay. Ooh. Okay, looks like we're gonna go. Hey, looks like we're gonna go a little over, guys. If we don't get to everybody today, and it doesn't look like we will, I intend to. I expect that the text discussion on Monday is going to be a little on the short side, so we can complete our review of homework on Monday. Hopefully, you'll all be there. Okay, Nick. So this is your stepping and yeah, okay, so we're stepping and lunging, coming to guard. Okay, all right. Nick, I would say that even though that you're really doing a nice extreme version of the capo ferro stance, watch out that your center of mass doesn't go too far beyond your rear leg. You have nice lines going on here and a nice rear knee bend. I would suggest that if you want to get that much body refusal, which is a really good thing, get your front foot a little farther out to balance yourself a bit more. Otherwise, you tend to make yourself a little bit unstable backwards. And you see here, as you step, you're actually gathering in the foot, bending that front leg to bring your center of mass farther forward. If your front leg had been farther out, you wouldn't have. I think you wouldn't have automatically felt as much of a need for that. All right, so this is the value of capo ferro's nice wide stance. It's different with Fabris, of course, because the body is going the other way. Okay, nice and smooth. Everything's working properly. Just that you got that little foot creep going on. Okay, so Nick, one thing I would suggest to you, because you've got a really good sense of the footwork, is really deliberately start playing around with rhythm and speed, right? Couple of slow steps, couple of fast steps, change up the speed, maybe change up the speed in mid-step. These are things that you can play around with as you practice your footwork. But again, making sure that the footwork itself does not suffer and that the guard does not suffer. Okay, this is looking good too. Although you see a little bit of the weight coming forward. All right, and that would make sense if you were actually gathering in your foot, but it doesn't look like you're doing that, at least not deliberately. The one thing I would say about your form here is that your sword hand is a little too high, because you see that that break in the wrist. Right, that sword should be the same height as your elbow. Okay, good job. Next one. Okay, so this is the recovery solo form, I believe. Yeah, so this is where I wrote down that your coming to guard looks a little Gumby-esque. You kind of slunk into it and ended up in a little bit of a contorted position. Nick, you're there,
I
right?
actually had a moment of a brain fart because I was like, I'm going to go to Fabris. No, wait, I'm going to go to Capoferro. So it was just like,
Okay. Okay. Well, bear in mind that those decisions are things that you also make during a bout, right? So so definitely practice going back and forth between the two stances and being aware of the changes that they make, even as you step. Right? Okay. Good commitment. Okay. All right. So you're a little, you do extend, you do commit nicely. You're a little careful on the actions. I think it may be because of a constrained space. I'm not sure. And you get a little bit of hang time in that second recovery. If you right there, right? You're kind of hanging out over that back leg. That recovery really is a quick breaking a measure. So you're pulling yourself back over the back leg, and then as soon as you can, pushing yourself back with that front foot. So that really should not be a, oh, I'm going to hang here and see what happens. Unless, of course, he doesn't respond. If he doesn't respond, if he's not coming at you and you can hang out there and redouble the attack immediately. But in this drill, you really want to think of, I need to get out. And then it becomes a matter of how far back do I pull in with the quickest motion possible. I will point out that for everybody that this is a really good speed with which to initially practice until you really get the actions down. This is how you want to be doing it. And now we're throwing in some cuts. Okay, timing of the cuts are good. That first cut, you're dropping your hand too soon. Let's see, go back here a bit. You see how low your hand was before you actually delivered the cut? Okay, yeah. So remember, it's the dropping of the arm and thus the hand that actually delivers the blow. So you don't want to pre-do that, or you're weakening the blow. And also potentially shortening your reach and missing the target entirely. The other two cuts were just fine. Okay, good work. Any questions? Okay, next one. What we have here is your outside lunges. Okay. Okay, my main comment here is relax the chest and shoulders. All right, everything is bunching up a little bit. Okay, so there, that seemed nice and relaxed, but you see how your chicken wing went up, but your chest, your shoulders did not really follow it. You stayed in a 3/4 profile. That's what I mean by relaxing the chest. Let your whole body swing with that elbow going up. Other than that, that was fine. Arms fairly relaxed there. Don't take your hand across your chest like that. Keep it right by your cheek, and let your elbow take you around. Because if you move your hand, your body is much less likely to follow your hand than it is to follow your elbow. It's kind of, it's one of the things what we mean by union of forces, everything working together. See, there that worked much better. Okay. I would say that your hand in seconda is a little high, probably due to a little bit of hyperextension of the arm, which you don't see in your terzas. Good. Okay. Also be careful. I know you're doing this at a fairly slow speed, but be careful that you're not doing it. You're not doing those sinking lunges where your foot hits the ground and you keep going past your foot and dropping low as you do it. Do perform at this speed, but make sure your foot goes where it needs to go so you can stop as soon as the foot hits the ground. Right? Okay. Yeah, so that's the thing about working slowly, guys. Everything should still work the same way that it does when you're working at top speed. Fencing or drilling slowly is a skill in its own right. But key to it, I think, is controlling your breathing. So what I was suggesting to, I think, Tony was, do it on a certain number of breaths. And then decide how many breaths you're going to perform this action. Okay, good work, Nick. Okay, Jeremy, you are up. Okay, so we've got some front. Oh, and by the way, I noticed there's a fantastic training tool in this in this frame. We'll talk about it in a second. And we have Katana Boy going on. All right. Okay, so Jeremy, you want to watch that thing I was telling Nick about? Is that going too far with your body past your foot and having your lunges sink too low? Because you start off on target, but then the point moves down with your body. Okay, keep your shoulders relaxed. Keeping the arm relaxed is going to help you keep the shoulders relaxed. Okay, now, one thing I'm noticing is that you're staying nicely in the pipe. And I think everybody knows what I mean by that. But, you know, the idea that you have this kind of sewer pipe in front of you that you can just fit your shoulders inside and you're making your body rotation so it slides through that pipe without tilting off the side and banging into the sides of the pipe. So Jeremy, you're doing a really nice job keeping everything in that space as you move your shoulders forward. That may be, however, contributing a little bit to that scrunching of your shoulders. So, so don't try to bring everything in together, but just get the shoulder in the right place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Now, training tool. So Jeremy, your terzas, like a lot of people, have a tendency to hyperextend, and you're extending your arm out, automatically bringing it to your shoulder rather than your shoulder down to your arm. Now, you've seen my tabletop videos where the lunge of terza, where your forearm is as if on a tabletop and you're sliding it along. Have you seen those? Okay. It's hard to do that with an actual tabletop because you tend to like crash into the tabletop, crash into the table as you complete your lunge. However, I see behind you an ironing board. And an ironing board, not only can you kind of slide through without really crashing into anything, crashing into legs or anything, because you could kind of use the edge, the tip of the ironing board, but it's also of adjustable height.
That's true.
Anybody who has an ironing board at home, you have the perfect tool for practicing your lunges of terza. You just need to to in guard, place your forearm without a sword on top of the front, the end, like 12 inches or so of the ironing board, and then go ahead and slide your arm along it, maintaining contact the whole time as you extend forward and then lunge. All right. So, and then of course you should be able to do that without the ironing board, but that is, I think, a standard issue piece of equipment that everybody should be able to use. All right. Okay. Next drill, next video from Jeremy is we have.
It's actually the same drill, but it's from the side. So
I beg. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, and here we really see that that losing the tabletop effect. So you see how the arm comes up to the shoulder before the shoulder goes forward. And it really, you're doing the same thing. You're trying to work with the 3 different positions of terza throughout, but your arm always ends up in front of your shoulder. So the idea here is if your hand and elbow are in a line, you just move that structure forward and let everything else follow. If you need, if your hand is tilted upward from your elbow, as in a find on the inside or outside, you drop your hand down to your elbow and then everything follows through. If your hand is lower than your elbow because you need to find a low sword, then you need to be raising the hand to the elbow at the same time as you're bringing your shoulder to your elbow. So once again, the elbow is going to be the still center that you move around with this particular lunge. All right? That's something you can do in a mirror and with the ironing board. Okay, and by the way, just a quick observation. This last one here, you hyperextend and look what happens to your sword. It's going straight down. All right, so can't quite tell what you're pointing at, but you're definitely ending up pointing at the guy's crotch. All right, I'm not saying that's bad. It's just maybe not what you intended. Okay. Again, the seconda transition is pretty good. Just again, because of that sinking you're doing with your knee, you start off in the right position, but then it's all dropping as you're finishing your lunge. So think of it this way: wherever your sword and hand end up at the extension of arm and body, that's where it needs to stay in terms of height above the ground as you push forward. So that may affect how far you push forward, but mostly it affects how you coordinate body and feet, and you don't sink into that knee.
okay.
Okay, good. All right. So yeah, the guard transitions themselves, rolling through your seconda and prima, they look pretty good from the hips up. Just always keep, at the end of the lunge, keep the knee over the foot. Okay. Okay, moving on. So, okay, we're gonna do one more. We're gonna do Sammy because we're running out of time. But like I said, you've got I think 4 more people after that, and if you're here on Monday, we'll be looking at it on Monday. Okay, so last one is Sammy. And I'm hoping we don't get cut off here because there's a meeting after this. All right, Sammy, so you're doing terza from an inside find. Okay, good guard to start off with. Sorry, that was from an outside find. All right, that was looking pretty good. Careful. Okay, so there's a little bit of hyperextension at the end there. And you can kind of see your point bouncing around at the end.
Yeah.
That's because you cast your forearm forward, right? Rather than placing it there and then pushing forward, it kind of got cast down into place, good place, but it got cast there as your foot was in the air. That made you lose control of it. Right? So control that descent of the forearm, and perform it as your shoulder is coming forward, but before your foot comes forward. Your transition seconda is better. Just relax the shoulder. You see how everything's popping up above the shoulder a little bit? Let's see that again. See that?
Okay.
That hand should be shoulder height, no higher. If you go higher in the shoulder, you're doing a prima. Okay, but you're keeping it nicely in the pipe. Arm and body are nicely coordinated. Just again, keep the arm relaxed, and make sure that everything is in place before you move the foot. You can also benefit from that exercise I told Mark about using the lunge to push a door away without losing contact with it. All right.
Okay.
All right. So everybody, let me get rid of this. All right. So things I want you to take away from today. And by the way, thank you everybody for the homework. Good work from everybody. And I'll get to the rest later. Slow down your drills, right? Work through the positions. If you're making guard transitions, you know, for instance, you're starting in quarta, go to terza before you go to anything else. Think of guard transitions as three-step processes. You have the initial guard, you have the transitional guard, and you have the guard where you end up in. The last two may be the same guard, right? For instance, going from quarta to terza. Start in quarta, transition to terza, and then finish in terza, right? But it's still kind of a three-step process because you got to get there before you push it forward, all right? So breathe, give yourself the time to move through those as you do them. Let's see, tabletop exercise for everybody. Use your ironing board, or, you know, if you don't have one, try to jury rig something. But that's the best way to keep that arm relaxed and in the right place for your lunge of terza. And then the door exercise, right? For control of the whole action, right? Well, without popping the arm, without popping the body forward. If the door escapes from you, if it starts getting pushed away from you, then you have not controlled your action. All right. Okay, guys. Okay, I'm seeing the chat here, and it's mostly a lot of chat. Okay. 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 Anybody have any last questions for me? All right. So, okay. So Monday we've got a reading assignment. We'll be looking at for at least half the class, and then I fully expect to review the rest of the videos at the end of that class. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great weekend, or
Thank you, John.
whatever
Thank
it is.
you,
for you.
John. Thanks, John.
Take care, John.
Thanks, John.
All right. Take care.